Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Jai, the host for today's live session. So we are bringing to you the third topic of the IP at Case Study series. So where we will explore the different types of IP strategies carried out by successful innovative companies. So this IP at Case Study webinar series is presented by Mr. Lok Chun Hong. So our topic today is Samsung. What comes to your mind about the brand Samsung? So feel free to tell us in the chat box. But I'm sure most of you would answer smartphones or even TVs, vacuum cleaners, yep, fridge, yep, and also other home appliances. So Samsung is one of South Korea's best-known exports and also among the most inventive companies in the world. So it is a household name and global leader in the cutting-edge mobile devices, home appliances, entertainment systems, and also 5G technology. So of course, apart from all these, they are also involved in a wide range of industries. Samsung has a diversified business portfolio, and hence having a very strong IP portfolio is essential for Samsung's business. So today we will talk about how Samsung sustains its tech leadership with IP rights. As usual, there will be a Q&A session after the presentation, so there will be no interruption while the speaker is presenting. However, you are encouraged to post comments or questions during the presentation, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. So since we are an IP firm and in no way related to Samsung, we hope that you can post questions related to Samsung's intellectual property strategies or activities. And also please spread the word about this webinar to encourage your family members, your colleagues, your business partners, and also your friends to join us now. So if you are viewing us through Facebook or YouTube, you may also share this webinar by clicking the share button. So I think we have quite a lot of audiences now. Okay, we have 54 now on Zoom, and probably a lot more from Facebook and YouTube. So please tell us about yourself in the chat box. Let us know your name and also your company's name. So I see, some of you like Miss Nor Anis Asmi, Dinosha, Chris, and also Saja responding to us. So hi everyone. Yeah, we have Joel too. Hi. All right. So, hi. Umu Kyle from Nano Malaysia. Hi. And okay. We have Miss Nor Anis Asmi from Innovim and also Rahmat from Shas Innovation here. Hi everyone. So while introducing yourself, please also tell us what appeals to you most about Samsung. So because Samsung constantly introduces innovative products with new features and usages. So if you find Samsung's innovation appealing, please type 1 in the chat box. Or if you are very attracted to the advanced technology in Samsung's products, and you find it very appealing, so please type 2 in the chat box. Or you may also choose 3 if you're attracted to the design of Samsung's products, you find them very trendy and also very cool. If you have a very good impression on the Samsung brand, you find the brand very reliable and you perceive it positively, you are willing to buy anything with the Samsung brand on it, you may also choose 4. Right, let me go through your responses. So we have a lot of responses here. So it seems that Samsung is very popular among our audiences today. Yeah, we have also let me see. Asri Johan, Mr. Asri Johan from UTM Space. Hi, and also Noranita from Polytechnic, Sultan Aslan Shah, and Ed Aziz from UN Ventures. Oh, so Dinosha, you're a final year law student. So hi everyone. So we have Sudha Koki from India, Present Innovation and Incubation Council too. So it seems a lot of people have chosen three. So you are very attracted to the design of Samsung's products. So mind telling me what type of products that you're very attracted to, as in the design, for those who have chosen number three. So there are also a number of you who have chosen one. So you find the innovation of Samsung very appealing. So Yap Yin has chosen two because of its cutting edge technology, and also Joy Chia as well, and also to Fanny. So no one has anyone chosen number four? Oh, Samsung T. Okay. So I guess yeah, a lot of people have chosen one and also three. So because of the flip Samsung phone, as in the Samsung Galaxy Fold, we find it to be very appealing. So some find the Samsung TV to be very innovative. Okay, so Rahmat Shazi feel that the innovation of Samsung is able to convince end users to buy because they are relatively new ideas. So Leong Yufei felt that the AMOLED screen and also the smartphone, they have very advanced technology, and that appeals to you most. Cutting edge technology, innovation would be like it's new. The idea is new. Cutting edge technology will relate more about the technical details of the technology. All right, so thank you for your responses. So before we start, let me introduce to you our speaker today. He's Mr. Lok Chun Ho, the founding partner of Pintas IP Group. So Pintas IP Group has been around for more than 20 years, and Mr. Lok has vast experience in handling IP protection and monetization matters in Southeast Asia. So without further much ado, let's welcome Mr. Lok.
Yep, thank you, Jai, for the introduction. Let me just share my screen. Sorry, how do I put it full screen? Okay. Yep. Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our webinar today. As mentioned by Jai, this is our third in our IP case study series. Today, we are going to feature Samsung. We want to look at the Samsung, how Samsung innovate and also protect the innovation with IPs, especially with patents. Okay, so a little bit of introduction. I think Jai has introduced me. I'm a patent lawyer. I am qualified for Singapore and Malaysia and been in practice for 20 years. And my area of specialization is on IP protection and monetizations. So, so when anyone think of any high-end handphone or any like high-end plus.
Sorry, Mr. Lok, you have muted your microphone.
Sorry, apologize. Okay, because using Zoom is a bit sometimes not so smooth. Okay, sorry. Let me just come back. Yeah, today in our case studies, we are going to see how Samsung protects its innovation and its brand using patents, trademarks, and industrial design, and how it capitalizes on IP rights to safeguard its market share and profit margin. Before I go into Samsung case, I think it is good that I make a short introductions about IP rights. What are the IP rights and what are the common characteristics of IP right? So when we look at IP rights, businesses should at least know the 5 basic IP rights. They are patents. The function of patents is to protect your new innovation and new invention. Copyright is for you to protect the content of your work, right? So as a business, as a researcher, you probably produce a lot of content, and the original content can be protected by copyright. And if you are a brand owner, you before you do any brand building, I think it is important that you own the brand by trademarking the brand. If you are a business that also focus on the outlook of your products, then it is important that you also own the outlook through industrial design protections. And all businesses would have a lot of proprietary information, which is important to the business. And all this proprietary information we need to protect it, safeguard it as a trade secret if you do not register them as IP. So these 5 basic IPs, they have common characteristics. They are intangible assets. It is something that you can put a monetary value on. It can, if you plan it properly, you can actually have it in the balance sheet of your company. But the most important characteristic of this IP is it is a monopolistic right given to you by the government of the land. If you fulfill certain IP requirement, and also if you do the necessary registration process, then you can have a monopoly right over your ideas. And because these IPs are monopolistic right, it's a legal monopolistic right, it can only be granted by each government, each sovereign authority. Therefore, it is limited by jurisdiction. So if I want a protection in US, I need to go to the US government. If I want a protection of my idea, ownership of my idea in China, I need to go to the China government. So it explains why IP is a jurisdictional right. And also IPs are limited by time. Each IP has a lifespan. So in order to keep the IP in place, we need to renew and also to maintain the IP rights. So today we are going to look into some of these IP used by Samsung to protect its innovations and brand. And in today innovation-based economy, IP is one of the most important assets for company. I believe you agree with me. If you look at the Fortune 500 companies in the States, more than 80% of the value of Fortune 500 companies comes from the intangible asset versus the tangible assets. Intangible assets refer to companies' IP rights like the brand, the trademark, the copyright, the patents, and also the database, right? So the 5 of the most valuable company in S&P 500 today, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, more than 90% of their values are in the intangible assets. And we have, over the past 2 years, during the COVID time, we have done a series of IP case studies on these 5 companies. And if you are interested, you can visit our website and you can follow those case studies at your leisure. Okay, so I believe you all agree with me that Samsung is one of the most innovative company today, and Samsung thrives on a lot of innovative ideas, and all these innovative ideas are jealously protected by Samsung through different types of intellectual properties. A lot of functional ideas developed and originated from Samsung's, they are either protected by patents or they are trade secrets of Samsung. So when Samsung come up with any new design, the outlook, the very innovative, appealing design will be protected by industrial design. all the Samsung's household brand, the house brand, Samsung, and the series brand, they are registered by Samsung as trademarks. And all the content, the copyright, the source code of the softwares, they are the copyright of Samsung. So Samsung's growth is heavily driven by intellectual property, and intellectual property is one of the most important assets of Samsung. So how does IP or intellectual property creates value for Samsung? First, all the investment, all billions of dollars of investment are spent yearly on research and development. In fact, Samsung spent from more than 9% of its revenue in R&D. And all this output from those R&D money and R&D effort, all the new innovations and new creation, you need to set a barrier of entry. You don't want competitor to come in and take away your idea and get scot-free. You need to have a barrier of entry. So intellectual property protections create that barrier of entry for Samsung's innovations and brand. And secondly, Samsung also uses IP to create freedom to operate, because in today's world, especially in a very competitive world, your competitors are also busily doing create new ideas and protecting new IPs. And if a certain idea is already protected or owned by someone, then there is no barrier of entry for you to do that business. You have no license to do business because that territory or that idea is already owned by someone. So one of the key reasons, and I will show afterwards, for Samsung, I think the freedom to operate is very important. Samsung filed a lot of patents to secure freedom to operate so that it doesn't get sued when it sells the products to the world. So these are the two key value for Samsung. So let me just go into Samsung now. A little bit of overview of Samsung as a corporate from South Korea. It is a conglomerate from South Korea founded in year 1938. It has been around more than 70 years, and it is one of the Korean largest company. It contributes to 20% of South Korean GDP. It is the second largest electronics, I would say, information technology company behind Apple. And Samsung is in many business. It is in smartphone, it is in memory card, it is in smart TV, it is in home appliances, right? So Samsung has a long history, and it is a very diversified business. And as you can see from the slide, Samsung's is involved in many different businesses. It is in electronics. 70% of its revenue now is from Samsung Electronics. But because of legacy reason, Samsung is also in the hospitality industry, in the trading industry, and also in the heavy in engineering and heavy industry. So it is a highly diversified business, but also vertically integrated business, meaning all the business units support each other and to make the company more competitive. In fact, if I use the Samsung Electronics as a case study, you can see how Samsung Electronics are so vertically integrated. So when you want to produce a handphone, for example, in Samsung, you have Samsung Cornings that come up with the glass, and you have the Samsung SDI that produce the battery, and you have the Samsung SDS that do the software, and the Samsung Display that produce the LCD screen, and you have the Samsung Electronics Mechanics to do the components, and lastly you have the Samsung Electronics to assemble everything together and produce the handphone. So this is how vertically integrated Samsung is, and to Samsung it is a source of competitive advantage, because Samsung is beholden to no one, right? It wants to produce any handphone or any like smart TV. It can source the components in-house. So it is logistically very certain, right? Compared to other companies like Apple. Apple has to buy, certain components from Samsung, even though they are competitors, but to a certain extent, some of the components of Apple phone comes from Samsung. So Samsung is the fact that it is diversified and vertically integrated is also a source of strength. And the other source of strength of Samsung, of course, is its innovation, it is IP, and it is brand. So we look into it later. So to understand the diversified nature of Samsung, you have to look at the history of Samsung. Samsung was formed in 1938. It was involved in grocery business, in the food business, in the real estate business, in the heavy industry, in the insurance, and now 70% of its business is in electronics. Right. So because of the legacy reason, you have a very diversified conglomerate. Right. So the modern Samsung, as we know today, the very innovative Samsung was actually, the foundation was actually laid by the late chairman Lee Kong-hee when he took over the management in 1993. So when he took over 1993, he knew that to compete in this highly competitive world, during that time, the world's most innovative company was Sony, right? And you need to compete. In order to compete successfully, you need to innovate. You need to focus on talent. You need to focus on brand. So Lee Kong-hee, the late chairman, actually repositioned Samsung from an originally OEM electronic manufacturer to subsequently a ODM, original design manufacturer, and an original brand manufacturer of class and quality, right? So that is a very fundamental shift for Samsung, right? From a imitator company to a innovator, right? This is from the copycat to the trendsetter, and the corporate strategy is based on the 5 pillars: innovation, cutting-edge technology, world-class design, world best talents, and branding. I guess for a lot of companies in the developing world, in order to move from the third to the first, this is the way, right? You need to innovate, you need to create brand, you need to get the best talent, you need to come up with the best design and develop a cutting-edge technology. If we forever focusing on OEM, we rely on others' technology, there will be no, the margin of profit will be very small. So in order to leap into the bigger league, you need to transform the mindset and start becoming innovative and a brand conscious. So Samsung managed to divert itself from the verge of bankruptcy in 1997, nearly bankrupt in 1997 financial crisis, Asian financial crisis. It successfully innovated itself from a third world company to a first world business empire. It's a major part of the South Korean economy today. Okay, so today Samsung, as of July 2021, it has 20% market share in smartphone, followed by Apple 14% and Xiaomi 13%. It is the world's largest vendor of smart TV. 32.9% of the world TV comes from Samsung as of March 2021. And as of second quarter 2021, Samsung has also surpassed Intel to be the world's largest semiconductor or memory chips manufacturers, right? So this is no small feat. You are able to compete with the best in the world and emerge as the world #1, and starting from a third world company doing OEM, and today it is a first world company known for innovative design and branding. So the next slide, I will look at the Samsung IP strategy. So, you know, Samsung is a heavy user of intellectual property rights, and Samsung's IP awareness by and large has been awakened by the IP litigation, especially the patent infringement cases that was taken against Samsung by major IP owners like Apple and Texas Instruments. So Samsung has been sued many times in the past, and because of that, Samsung realized that in order to grow big, you have to own your own IP. You need to file many IP, and in Samsung, Samsung adopts a more defensive strategy compared to offensive strategy adopted by Apple. So Samsung filed a lot of patents. It has more than 100,000, 200,000 patents, and they rarely do we see that Samsung sue people for any infringement. It's like they found patent to avoid being sued, to get freedom to operate. This is a defensive strategy that Samsung is adopting. So to look at this defensive strategy, I think I need to draw your attention, right, to one of these biggest IP battle of the century involving Apple versus Samsung. Before this case, right, Samsung was not known to be a very innovative company. And indirectly, because of this case, people comes to associate Samsung to very innovation, because people start to notice that Samsung is also coming up with a lot of new innovation. So let's talk about this IP battle of the century. So as I mentioned earlier, Samsung supplies the components to Apple, but in 2020, when Apple launched the smartphone, the iPhone, Samsung also released in 2010, released a very iPhone-like smartphone under the Samsung Galaxy lineup. And this Samsung Galaxy lineup marked the beginning of a long series of Samsung phone. And that Samsung phone has slowly eaten into Apple iPhone's popularity. And as you can see, in 2021, Samsung has sold more smartphones than Apple. So Steve Jobs, the late Apple CEO, was very angry, right? That the original idea contained in the original iPhone was copied by Samsung in a big way. So he started an unprecedented legal war against Samsung. And this legal battle spanned 4 continents. Took place in more than 50 countries, and more than at stakes are $1 billion of damages. So the first action was taken in US in April 2011, and by mid 2021, more than 50 countries, Apple sued Samsung in more than 50 countries. And between the 2021, 22, and 2015, there are many conflicting rulings coming from different courts in different countries. And okay, let's look at the what is the contention between Apple and Samsung. Apple sued Samsung for the Samsung Android phone and tablets, including the Galaxy X series, the Nexus X series, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab. Apple alleged that Samsung infringed Apple's patents, trademarks, and also design. So these are the some of the causes of action where Apple took the IP infringement action. First, Apple alleged that Samsung copied the trademark which Apple has registered. These trademarks involve the Apple iOS icon. So the icon that you can see on the screen that we have taken for granted was actually trademarked by Apple. And when Samsung started the smartphone, Samsung actually copied those icons very similar to the original iOS icon. Therefore, one of the cause of action was for trademark infringement. Okay, the other cause of action was for design. If you remember those original phone, iPhone original, the 3G, now we are at the 7G already, but the iPhone 3G, this was copied by the Galaxy 4G of Samsung. So one of the design that Apple users used to sue Samsung was this patent design number 627790 that involved if you look at this design, right, you have the solid line and the dotted line. So what Apple registered was the solid line of the shape of the home screen, the grid of the icon. Yeah. So this grid, not the shape of the phone, but the grid. The second design is on the shell, the design shell of the iPhone 3G. So here again, the screen was dotted. When you dot a design, meaning you disclaim the part, and what you register is also only the shape of the shell of the phone. And thirdly, the third design was the shape of the screen together with the button design of the iPhone, right? So when Apple protect the design, it doesn't protect everything in one. In one design, it protects the shape of the grid of the icon. Second is the shape of the shell. Third is the shape of the grid, shape of the screen and the button, right? So there are three designs that was copied by Samsung earlier Galaxy phone. And also the pattern, right? When Apple came up with the iPhone, it totally disrupted the key phone. So everything become, you operate by software and very smart. So one of these function, there will be no key, right? That the only key that you find on an Apple phone is the side button where you change the volume. And that side button that controls the volume was actually patented by Apple. So this is on that patent 7836533. It is on the volume rocker. That it is a series of fulcrum and how you can control the volume. That was original when it was originally from Apple, and this is one of the patent that Apple users used to sue Samsung. The other patent that Apple used to sue Samsung was that of scrolling by swiping. When the original smartphone identified that you have one finger on the touch screen, it is for swiping action. So when you detect two fingers on the iPhone, then it is for enlarging, to scale the view, right? This function was actually patented by Apple originally, and it was copied by all the subsequent smartphones. In the past, how do we control? We use the button to control. Now you use your finger. And the computer, the software in the phone is smart enough to identify is one finger or two finger. One finger means scrolling, two finger mean, expanding the view. And that feature was also patented in this claim that you can read. It says, when this machine detect one finger, what does it do? Two finger, what does it do? And it was copied also by Samsung. The other one is on auto rotating. Yeah, this is another function when it first came out. When the phone, when it detects that you change the direction of the phone, then the screen will auto rotate. That was also a new feature when smartphone was introduced, and this is something we take for granted by all the smartphone user now. But those features are original idea came out by Apple. And Apple patented the idea that when you rotate in one direction, screen one will come out. You rotate in second direction, screen two, it is horizontal or vertical view. And this was new, and it was patented by Apple and was copied in the Samsung phone. And that was also one of the weapons used by Apple to sue Samsung. So this claim is what was described in that pattern, right? When this machine change direction, then it auto rotates. So what happened, right? So this case was fought all over the world in 50 countries, and Apple managed to win some victories here and there. And in Europe, Apple managed to get a European-wide injunction against the Samsung Galaxy Tab, right? Because of all this patent, and also in Australia, injunction was granted for Apple against Samsung. But you know, this case protracted for 7 years. Many of the original model that was actually in contention by the time the appeal came out, because you know, when Apple sold Samsung will appeal, and this whole process took 7 years, right? So many years. Many of these products become obsolete by the time the appeal result is out. So what happened is, you know, both parties eventually came to a settlement. In 27th of June 2018, both parties reached a settlement, and the jury awarded 539 million for Apple, for Samsung to pay Apple for all these smartphone infringement. So it is a big sum, 500 over million US dollar for the IP infringement of the smartphone. But you know, Samsung also learned a lot of lesson from here. Samsung start to innovate more, to get away from, you know, the follower mentality and become more of an innovator. And also indirectly, the case did some good for Samsung, because you know, people start to associate Samsung with Apple, right? Before that, Apple is something so high up, it's so innovative that no one can challenge. But after this case, you know, people start to see, oh, that's you know, some they're on the same plate, you know, they are suing each other for this patent infringement. So there's some good things coming for Samsung also in this litigation. So let's go down to the next part, which is the Samsung competitive advantage. So when we talk about any competitive strategy, we have to look at the Porter generic strategy on competition. And Michael Porter, one of the greatest business mind, he said that in order to be in business, right, you either become a cost leader meaning sell very cheap, or you have to differentiate yourself, yeah, and you have to target a certain customer. You sell very cheap, you sell to all, or you differentiate yourself and you focus on the focused customer. Before 1993, Samsung was in the first category. It was a cost leader. It sell very cheap product to compete, right? Not on innovation. After 1993, after the change of direction, Samsung become a differentiator. It differentiates based on IP, based on innovation, based on brand, and also it also competes using the vertical integration, and it targets not the cheap, cost-conscious customer, but to the tech-savvy and aspirational people who aspire for a better lifestyle. So this is the change, right? This is what Samsung is competing on, based on innovation and brand, and also based on vertical integration. So in the next few slides, I'm going to look at some of the innovation and the brand strategy of Samsung. Okay, so let's look at the trademark branding strategy. Samsung adopts a master architecture, master house brand strategy. All the Samsung's products, you know, Samsung is very wide, right? It's very diversified. It has insurance, it has heavy industry, it also have engineering, but all this is branded under this house brand of Samsung. So it can share the goodwill across these different classes, but they all share the same branding strategy or branding philosophy, which is innovation, brand, best talent, design, and also technology driven, right? This is the Samsung's brand, which differentiated from other competitors. And Samsung has gone through many brand rebranding, right? From the early days, you have the 3-star Samsung, and eventually Samsung in Korean means 3-star, or in Chinese it reads Sansing, it's 3-star, but eventually that 3-star is dropped and it become the Samsung as it is today, the Samsung's brand of today. And Samsung is a very active user of the trademark system. When we do our research for this presentation, we couldn't actually tell how many trademarks that Samsung has totally filed, but we know that Samsung filed a lot of trademark. Samsung filed trademark not only for the house brand, the Samsung logo, Samsung's domain name, Samsung's brand, digital, or everyone's invited. These are all the Samsung's house brand. This is a corporate brand. But Samsung also actively filed trademark for the product range brand. Like for example, if you take Galaxy alone, Samsung Galaxy alone, Samsung filed so many series brand like Samsung A, Samsung S, Samsung Z, Samsung Z Row, Samsung Z Slide. Every product series, Samsung filed trademark registration for defensive reason. They don't want that one day someone register the word Z for one reason or the other. They manage to get Z and they counter sue Samsung. So Samsung just go for Galaxy Z. And when they come up with a sliding action, Samsung also filed that function into the trademark. Like for example, Samsung Z Slide, Samsung Z Row, right? Galaxy Z Row. So it's a it covers not only the house brand level, but the product series level down to the function of the product series. They all register them as trademark. Okay, and Samsung is one of the top brands in the world now. Interbrand 2021 ranked Samsung as the 5th most valuable mark at $74 billion US. It is the one of the top Asian brand. It's a top Asian brand and one of the top world brand. And this has got to do with the billions of dollars spent by Samsung in doing branding. First, for those of you who follow the English Premier League, you know that Samsung, sponsor a lot of sport club. Chelsea football team, the jersey would have the Samsung's logo. If you go to any of these exhibition fair, electronic fair, if you go to the past many Olympic games, Samsung was the key sponsor. So Samsung has spent billions not only in R&D but also in branding, and with the very clear branding strategy, innovation, design, leading technology, you position yourself up in the mind of the consumer. So next, I will spend another 20 minutes of the time talking about Samsung innovation and some of the key patents that Samsung has filed. Yeah, as I mentioned, Samsung invested heavily. 9% of its sales revenue are invested in R&D. I don't know how many companies in this part of the world spend 9% of revenue in R&D. It's meaning like, you pour all the profits you make into developing better and cutting edge technology to compete, right? So with so much money spent, of course, you need to protect those output of the R&D. So Samsung filed a lot of patents. Samsung was number 2 in the US granted patent. This is the patent granted in US. Samsung is ranked number 2, just behind IBM. And if you look at the world most innovative company, 10 most innovative company, you can see come in number 2 is Samsung Electronics and number 8 is Samsung Display. If you look at the number of total patent application filed by Samsung, if you add the Samsung Display and Technology together, you have close to 300,000 patent application coming from one company, and it overshadow other competitors, right? So you can see, how much investment has been made by Samsung in protecting and in developing new technologies. What are the area of technologies that Samsung file patents in? Samsung do a lot of patents in semiconductors, in digital data, in data transmissions, and also, these are all the electronic area. Samsung's one of the key leading technology is that Samsung specializes in is digital conversion, right? So, and many of us who buy Samsung's product, we like Samsung because it converges with other Samsung electronic. You buy a smartphone, the smartphone can connect with the Samsung TV, can connect with the Samsung fridge, it can connect with the Samsung phone. It's this digital conversion. Some of it are new innovation which are protected by all these patents. Okay, and what are the key countries that Samsung has filed patent? It files the most patent in US, followed by Korea and China and European Union. Yep. So these are the key geographical regions where Samsung filed their patent. And apart from filing patent, original patent, Samsung also buy a lot of patents through M&A with different companies. So to speed up, the freedom to operate. In order to sell certain products, you don't want to get sued, so you need to get freedom to operate. And to develop from scratch will take a long time. So it's easier for them to just M&A or have cross-licensing with all these partners who owns the patent. So by adopting this open innovation strategy, Samsung is able to grow faster. You don't have to wait, right, to develop technology from scratch. And according to the Fortune magazine, Samsung tops the ranking on the most valuable patent portfolio. It has got over 1,000 patents, and its patent is worth $50 billion US, making it one of the most valuable patent portfolio among the technologies company. Okay, so let's look at some of the Samsung technological leadership. So we all know that the past few years, Samsung has been very aggressively making its presence felt by using its technological power to come up with the largest plasma TV, come up with a curved TV, come up with a folder phone. All these are actually led by Samsung. I just checked with my team, is there any other player in the market now selling folder phone, and we couldn't find. So I think it is the only smartphone company that has the folding phone features. So Samsung, all these technological leaderships are jealously protected by Samsung with IP rights. So we're going to, because of the time constraint, we can't go into too many areas. We just want to focus in one area, which is on the Samsung folder smartphone and what are the IPs used by the Samsung to protect the Samsung Galaxy Z folder phone series, right? This is what we are going to do in my next maybe 20 minutes of my time. We have prepared a handbook for you. We gone into the huge portfolio of Samsung patents and try to extract some of the patents, and we put them together in this case study. And if you are interested, you can scan a copy and you can read for yourself to just get a better picture. Okay, so I think many of us will be asking, what is the secret sauce of Samsung endless stream of technology? Samsung seems to be able to come up with a lot of new invention over time, a lot of new features. And what drive the Samsung's innovation? And we do some research, and we find that this is particularly for Samsung Electronics SE. Samsung's electronics adopt three strategy. One is it has a value innovation center. They call it a VIP center. So this VIP center uses techniques like blue ocean strategy and the tool like strategy canvas, to find out what are the value you can add to your product, what to be enhanced, what to be reduced, what to be eliminated in order to differentiate from your competitor. This is the blue ocean strategy canvas, right? And this blue ocean strategy is started by a South Korean professor from INSEAD University. So this professor actually is an advisor to Samsung, using this strategy canvas to come up with value that, differentiate with your competitor's product. And those differences, this differentiator will be protected by IP so that people cannot copy. And you have another center called the Advanced Institute of Technology, SAIT, that research into original technology. Because if you want to do a future product, right? If you want to do like semiconductor, you want to come up with a smaller manufacturing technique for smaller semicon, then you need to have original idea. It's not for you to create value, but come up with break new frontiers in the technology front to come up with new solutions. So for that, you need a very deep tech researcher, deep tech setup, and they set up this Advanced Institute of Technology to do original research into original technology. And third, they also have this open innovation, do a lot of cross-licensing with other companies like IBM. So they license a technology to IBM in return cross-license. So you have access to new technology very fast. So these are the three key sources of Samsung's innovation. And let's focus our attention on that Galaxy Z phone. I believe many of you, some of you may have bought a Galaxy S phone. I think it costs about 2,000 US per phone, and you can command this kind of pricing because it has certain extra features that makes the phone delivering a better user experience, right? So let's look at this value that this phone can create, and also what are the patterns that protect this solution. Okay, so when Samsung come up with this Galaxy Z folding phone, it targets the tech-savvy and consumer that are willing to pay more if they can gain efficiency and also better experience. Yeah, they are not the low end; they are actually the high end user. And what this customer wants is they want to have an all-in-one experience at the palm of their hands. They want to do work, they want to enjoy media, everything in one, and also fun, right? Media, they want to have one. But because the phone is so small, right, it has size limitation. How do you make the size bigger and you can put it back to a smaller size when you want to put them away? So how do we solve this size limitation? So Samsung's come up with this solution, a folding phone. So in a folding phone, you can have an expensive design. Expensive meaning you can extend the screen size, and you can put them away when you can fold it back if you don't want to use it. And you can also have a smartphone that has multiple display to display multiple apps in one go. In one simultaneous screen, you can have multiple apps. So with this, you can have a phone that you can fold, expand and reduce the size. And in the screen, the expanded screen, you can have multiple display. So this is the value that this Z phone is created. So in order to deliver this value, Samsung has to come up with some new solution, and they also patent the solution, and we're going to look at some of those patents today. So if you look at the Samsung's phone, it has evolved along from the traditional key phone, a Me Too key phone, to copy Apple, to coming up with the original Galaxy Z. So from our research shows that this foldable phone are protected by at least 5 key patents. So what are the key patents? Patent number 1, right, is how do you fold a phone and you can have a feature that can sustain repeated folding, and yet, right, the phone the screen, the flexible screen, will not break by or leave behind a line after repeated folding. So for that, what Samsung has done is it come up with a system where the display is broken into three parts. A first part, a second part, and a third part in between, right? If you can follow my arrow, you have the first part, you have the second part, and a third part in between. This is a flexible screen. The first part is supported by a first body, the second part is supported by a second body. So when the first body and second body are clamped together, it will leave behind. If you can follow my arrow, you create a space here, a receiving space, right? A receiving space, so that the screen, the flexible display, will not fold sharply. It will become a curved portion. It become a curved portion and rest in this so-called receiving space, right? So when you fold and it rests like this, it wouldn't get creased easily and it wouldn't break, right? Because it's forever not closed sharply. It is always in a closed position. So when that happens, this thing will move, right? This the part A will move, and they put a stopper at the front to stop the screen from sliding out. So this is the solution introduced by Apple to come up with a folding phone, having a screen that fold but yet do not close sharply. And if you look at the pattern, right, found by Samsung, what is a pattern? Pattern is when you come up with a combination of parts and you claim that combination, and that combinations belong to you, and any competitors follow this combination, they will be infringing your patent. In a patent, you claim the combination to own the combination. So in this patent by Samsung, which was filed in 2017, right, and granted in 2014 and granted in 17, this patent, what is claimed is you have the first body, as I mentioned just now, and the second body, and the flexible display supported by the first and the second body, sliding in the rotation of the first body, and you have a movement limited member, which is marked as 331 to 6, 331 to 6. Yeah, these are the 331 to 6. These are the movement limiting members to prevent the screen from going out of the margin and fall out from the side. So this is what, it's a simple solution. You want to fold, you don't want the screen to get damaged. How do you do it? You maintain that screen at a folded stage, a curve, and rest it in between the two bodies. And you have the stopping member to stop them from going out. So this is the first pattern, yeah, to give you an idea of what Samsung has created. It's not a rocket science technology. It's just a clever manipulation of the curved screen and the flexible display, and also the bodies of the phone. And the second phone is, in order to have a foldable phone, you have to have a foldable display that can stand repeated folding, right? So you fold many times, you even though it's not sharply folded, it will create certain crease, right? So how do you come up with a screen, a display that can withstand repeated folding and also does not affect the electronics of the device? So this one has to improve the material. So what Samsung has done again is to have a display module having this display screen will have multiple layers, and the key layer will be a display module. This display module will be the module that shows a picture, but beside or adjacent to the display module, they put in other elasticity adjusting module layer. This elasticity adjusting module. As you can read from the claim, right? The claim, this combination of steps, combination of feature, it has multiple layer. You have the most important is the display module that display the picture, and adjacent to that display module, you have an elasticity adjusting module with a elastic modulus, which is less or equivalent to all the other module. So the other module, in other way, is having an elastic module which is lesser, meaning it is more flexible, and it will, when you fold the screen, all the other layer having lesser elastic module will take in the stress. So that display unit will not take any stress, so that you create a neutral plane within the display module. When you have a neutral plane, it means you have no stress at all. So if you don't have all this elasticity adjusting module, the neutral plane will not be inside the display module, right? It will be outside, and the display module will face stress and the module will be damaged. But by cleverly adding in an elasticity adjusting module, which have a equal or less elastic modulus than the display module, you can move the neutral plane within that display module, and the display module will suffer no stress, and therefore it don't get damaged, even though you have repeatedly folding the display module. Okay, so this is how this combination help Samsung to come up with a material that allows it to be folded multiple times without damage to the display module, right? So this is the second patent that make folding phone set a reality. The third pattern that I like to share with you is, how do you increase the screen area, right, of your phone? Something that you can like extend and retract easily. So for that, Samsung come up with a mechanical system. This is not a rocket system. It is an old school mechanical system of joining, first a flexible display with a base housing. The base housing is the basic housing, the basic structure unit of the phone, and interplay with a sliding housing and a folding housing. So flexible screen plus base housing plus sliding housing and a folding housing put all together, then you can have a structure that can fold, open, and you can extend to enlarge the screen area, right? This is what Samsung does in the Galaxy Z series. Okay, so this is how it works, right? You can see again the claim of this pattern is a combination of parts. Like you have the base housing, you have the sliding housing partially overlapping with the base housing, you have the whole folding housing partially overlap with the sliding housing, and you have a display, flexible display, which is disposed. Sorry, I'm looking for my arrow. Which is the display, which is disposed on the folding housing and the sliding housing, and located within the base housing. So when you do the sliding, right, the folding housing and the sliding housing will move to do the sliding, and when you do the folding, the folding housing will operate to do the folding. So it's a mechanical part, it's a mechanical configuration of having the four parts joined together. But if any of the competitors will want to use this combination of display plus basic housing plus sliding housing plus folding housing, they will be infringing the pattern of this Samsung's patent. Yeah, because they are the first to come up with sliding and folding in one smartphone, and no others have done that before, and it was patented by Samsung. The next is about screening. This has to do with the software portion of the phone already, especially when you when you fold the phone, right, at the folding zone, the foldable zone, the image, you have discontinuity in the image, or you have blurring, right? Because when you fold your thing, you cannot see a continuous image. So in order to produce a continuous image, Samsung has come up with a software that can produce different display zone, right? When these different display zone will appear based on the folding angle of the display unit. So when you fold your phone to a certain angle, the display, the change of folding angle will be detected by the controller, and the controller will activate the other zone to appear on the screen so that you can see different display and different apps appearing on the phone. Okay, so this is what this software is doing. So when you fold the phone, right? So when the angle detect that you are going big, then the controller will control the image to be displayed on a certain area in your screen. And when you fold, certain area will not appear. So this is how you know, you can, if you can follow my screen, this is how it control. You have a control unit, you have an angle sensor, you have the storage unit to keep those content that you want to display, and you have the first screen and the second screen. So when the angle detect the folding, and the display unit will show the content based on the angle. So if you read the claim, this is what they claim, right? You have detection of the angle, controlling, and display. So this is how you have multiple screen on multiple apps in one screen based on whether it's folded or it is open. And this is a software control, and this method is protected as a patent. Last but not the least, there's this another software patent that also helps the user when your phone is folded completely. You cannot operate on the phone, right? You cannot operate on the phone because there's no display area for you to operate the phone. So what they do is Samsung come up with two areas. First area, when you fold the phone, you don't fold the phone symmetrically already. You have two area, one area bigger than the second area. So there's a detector to see when it's folding. When you fold, the phone is folded, then the user interface will appear on the exposed area. So when you open up the phone, the entire app will appear on the screen. When you fold the phone, only the user interface will come on the exposed area. And this is all reflected in the patent claims, right? So as you read this claim, it comprises of a combination, and you have the flexible exposed area, and you have a detector and a controller that control the display. When it is folded, then you will display a user interface on the exposed area. And when it is unfolded, you will display an entire apps on the screen, right? So these are some of the building blocks of this Galaxy Z, which is patented. And the design, of course, of the folding phone is also protected by industrial design, as you can see in the screen, and also the end device. Okay, with the time allocated to me, I have some other slides which I have no time to go into. The Super AMOLED, the QLED, yeah, these are protected by this US patent, the AMOLED patent, the QLED patent, and also the semiconductor fabricators. Samsung is one of the two companies in the world that can produce 3 nanometer semicon and chip. That they're using this technology, MBC FAT system, to produce 3 nanometer chip, and it is successfully launched, and this is a claim. If you want to find more, you can read it from my handbook, what are claims, and these are very, very deep tech, which it's definitely beyond me. So I believe some of you who are engineers, you probably may make sense out of these claims. And last but not the least, to end my session today, I will say that Samsung's push the business, grow the business with innovation, right? And it has paid handsomely for Samsung. Samsung's revenue has also grown, over the years, and it is becoming one of the most successful company in the world. And if you compare the graph with the patent filing number, you see certain resemblance, right? The more you file patent, the more financially successful you are, or the other way around. When you have more successfully financially, you file more patent, but there seems to be a correlation between the financial performance and the number of patents that Samsung filed. And Samsung has grown a lot from its OEM day. It is market cap as of July 2022, because now there is a financial, tech companies taking a beating, but it is worth $300 billion and it's the world's second largest info tech company by revenue after Apple. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation on Samsung. I'm given 1 hour to do my presentation. We're doing another case study on Microsoft. We are going to revisit Microsoft again on the 22nd of September. If you're interested, you can join us. With that, I pass the mic back to Jai. Jai. Yes, Jai.
Yep, let me switch to my slide. Yep, thank you, Mr. Ho, for the interesting talk and helping us to understand more about the IPs of Samsung, a brand that we are all very familiar with for some of its products that a lot of people are using them daily. So we have come to the Q&A session, and we have received quite a number of questions that are related to IP. So the first question is from Ms. Noor Anis Asmi. So she asked how Samsung registered its IP throughout the world. Is there a one-off registration?
Yeah, to answer Ms. Noor question, IP is a jurisdictional right. It's a legal monopoly right granted by the government of the land. So you need to go to each government to get the monopoly. If you want a monopoly in US, you can only get it from the US government. You cannot get it granted by anyone else except the sovereign authorities. That explain the jurisdictional nature of IP. So Samsung has to file country by country, but there are certain ways where you can file like multiple countries. You can use the WIPO system, like the Madrid trademark, the PCT, or you can use the H design for you to file in different countries. But at the end of the day, you will only get the approval from each government, right? Even though you go to WIPO still have to refer to the government to get the right for you. So it is a jurisdictional right.
All right. So yeah, the second question is from wait, because I can't see my chat box. All right. So the second question is from Mr. Rahmat Shazi. I think he left the Zoom the Zoom room because he has something else going on. But let's answer his question. He asked whether Samsung has any whether Samsung's IP strategy affect its marketing strategy at all. So like how to win clients' trust to buy their products in spite of all the patent battles, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think in today's world, in order for you to produce anything, it is not the know-how that you know how to produce it, but also the right to produce it. So all the big players are using IP to set up, to own certain territory. So what Samsung did was, in the early days, it faces a lot of IP battles. It has been sued left, right, and center because all these ideas has already been patented by other players. So as a result, Samsung has to do its own original R&D, come up with some new filing, and also actively do open licensing, open innovation, do cross licensing with a lot of players to secure the freedom to operate, so that when you enter into a market, you don't get stopped by IP issues. This is what happened right now, right? One of the way is for you to have collaboration, cross licensing. When you have a certain portfolio, it's easier for you to cross license with your competitors, and at the same time, you also develop your own IP. So all developing countries face the same problem. Initially, you need to pay royalties, licensing to the more developed country. But as you develop, as you spend more R&D money, you start to build up your portfolio of IP, and you can do cross licensing, and you secure your freedom using your IP rights. So this is a evolution that every companies and even country has to go through.
All right. The third question is from Aisha. She asked how freedom to operate works and how does it differ from patent filing?
Freedom to operate is the other side of patent filing. When you don't have a patent, and this idea that you want to use is already patented by someone, then you have no freedom to operate. So for you to sell something, like what if Samsung wants to sell the original smartphone, and that original smartphone idea has already been patented by Apple, then it has no freedom to operate. The moment you cross the line and start using the idea patented by someone, you will get sued. So this is the issue of freedom to operate. So in order to secure freedom to operate, what Samsung has done is to file more patent so that they don't get sued. They adopt a more defensive strategy to protect their future rights to do business.
Okay, so we have a final question from Fong, who's from Ace Digital. He asks, does the number of users of the invention dictate the final monetary gain of the invention increase over the payback period?
So I need to look at the question. Is it in the chat box?
Yeah, it's the final question in the chat box.
Does the number of users of the patent dictate the final monetary gain? Yes, definitely. Because if there are more users, the more valuable your patent will be. If you want to calculate, right, the value of a patent, it is based on the total royalty that you can collect from your patent, right? You discount to today's value. So if you have more users, the value will become higher. If your patent is hardly used, the value is the cost of creating the patent, the R&D cost. But if the patent is used heavily, then the value will increase, and the number of royalty you can collect will be higher. And it is a function. Your value of your patent is a function of how many people use your patent or pay royalty for your patent.
All right. So we don't. There are no further questions from. Oh, okay, sorry. There is a last question from Mr. Asri Johan. So he asked, should SMEs IP their invention? I mean, he's asking if SMEs should register their invention. Is it costly?
Yeah, IP is costly. R&D is even costlier, right? If you want to come up with a new idea, you probably spend so much money creating the mold, protecting, do trial and error. You put in your time cost, you put in your risk, you have to risk to test the market. So I would say IP is not cheap, right? If you want to file in many countries. So focus in your home base first, right? When you first file a patent, R&D costs, IP costs pure in comparison to the R&D costs is probably less than 10%, if you consider, your home country. So it is part of your R&D investment, and it should be looked at this way. You cannot just file IP out of the blue. It's based on your R&D investment. and the opportunity loss if you do not patent it and someone were to copy it, you can only sell one time, right? So it is a necessary cost. If you want to do R&D, you want to do branding, you have to protect IP. There's no other way about it. Yeah, and it's part of your branding cost, it's part of your R&D cost. Advertising is not cheap also, right? You want to advertise, you know, you just need to spend a lot of money. So before you spend money on advertising, you just use a fraction of advertising cost to own the trademark. It's just the cost that you need to spend.
Okay, and one last question from Mr. Charles Tan. He asked how to determine patent use.
Patent use means you are using it or you license it someone to use. That's what I don't quite understand your question. But if what is the context of this question? Can you clarify? Meaning that if you were to use it to avoid infringement, or you want to use it to create value, what kind of what is the context? If for the context of infringement, if you use a patent for R&D, it's not considered use. But if you sell it commercially, then it's considered use, right? If you commercially use the IP, the idea is commercial use. And for the use, the purpose of, yeah, that's what I can think of to answer your question.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have come to the end of the Q&A session. So again, if you're interested in downloading the handbook, so please scan the QR code here. Because just now and a participant said she is unable to download the handbook through scanning the QR code. So don't worry, we will send you the link to download the handbook through email. So in the next topic on the 29th of September at 2 p.m. Singapore time, we will have the IP at case study 4th topic on Microsoft. So again, if you are interested in participating in this webinar, please scan the QR code over here. Or you may also contact us at this email address and also at this phone number. So we do provide a 30-minute free consultation session to new clients. So if you have any questions relating to IP, you may contact us at this email address and also at these numbers. So thank you, Mr. Loh, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you everyone for attending, and also thank you, Jai, for hosting the show today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.